Okay, so you're here because, well, you want to get right to what matters, cut through the noise. So let's do that. We've got an upcoming ONPASSIVE webinar on the radar.
Exactly. Yeah, and for anyone following on passive these events, they can often get some pretty crucial insights, into the company's direction.
Right. This one's set for Thursday, April 10th, 2025,
Hmm.
12:00 noon Eastern Standard Time. So, yeah, get that in your calendars.
And what makes this one particularly interesting, I think, is that it's actually the first live webinar on passive is holding this year.
Ah, okay. First one.
Yeah, and historically, their first webinars of the year, sometimes they've been platforms for like significant announcements, new products, maybe strategic shifts, that kind of thing.
And who's leading this potentially pivotal discussion?
Well, it's CEO Ash Muffar himself.
Ah, okay. So the CEO. That's always pretty noteworthy for people tracking on passive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mr. Muffar's direct involvement in these things,
Mm-hmm.
it often signals he has key updates, maybe a significant vision to share, directly.
Yeah.
His presence definitely lends weight to it.
So, okay. We know the when, we know the who. Now, the big question, I guess, for everyone listening and for us digging into this, what can we actually expect? Like, what's likely on the agenda here?
Yeah, well, that's where things get a little less clear-cut, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
As of April 7th, which is the date of the info we have, there hasn't really been a specific breakdown, nothing public about the webinar's content.
Right. So the essential details are their time, date, speaker, but the what?
Yeah.
That's still under wraps.
Exactly. It leaves us and everyone else sort of considering what might be important for OnPassive to talk about right now at this point in the year.
Okay, so if we're looking at past patterns, what usually happens?
Well, considering past patterns, these initial webinars, they've often touched on major milestones from the previous period, maybe outline key goals for the year ahead.
Right, looking back, looking forward.
Yeah, and given how fast things move, especially in tech, there's always that anticipation, updates on product development, market strategies.
So, okay, no detailed agenda, but followers will probably be looking for what? Insights into tech advancements, updates on Go founders, maybe, new partnerships, stuff like that.
Precisely. Yeah, any of those things are possibilities. And look, while we can speculate based on, past trends in the industry, the most reliable way to get those specific answers.
Is going to be attending the webinar live, April 10th.
That's it. That's the direct line to the information right as it's presented.
Okay. And for anyone who just can't make it live.
Well, then the next best step is probably to keep a close eye on the official on-end passive communication channels. Look for summaries or recordings that might come out after.
Makes sense. Go straight to the source if you can.
It really does underscore the value of that, doesn't it?
Right.
Especially when details are, intentionally kept quiet until the event itself. That firsthand experience can be really invaluable.
Okay, so let's recap the core info here. On apppassive.live webinar this Thursday, April 10th, 2025, 12:00 noon EST, and it features CEO Ash Muffar.
Right. And the key thing is the specific topics, they haven't been pre-announced. So direct engagement with OnPassive is really the way to get those details.
Okay, so zooming out a bit, what's the bigger picture here? I mean, it kind of highlights how even now, with information everywhere, there are still these moments where key details are unveiled live, right?
Yeah, it creates that sense of anticipation.
And it really emphasizes being present, being there to get it firsthand.
It really does.
Yeah.
And maybe that raises an interesting point for you, the listener, to think about. In a world where so much is instantly available, what's the real impact, the perceived value, when crucial details are deliberately held back for a specific moment? Demanding that direct attention, that engagement. It's an interesting dynamic to watch, something to mull over.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking closely at something that's definitely making waves. It's the OnPassive ecosystem, or OES, and specifically its big relaunch plan for June 2025.
That's right. And there's quite a bit of buzz around it.
Yeah, we've looked at material from a panel discussion. You had Ash Muffar, the founder and CEO.
Mike Ellis, global ambassador. Julian Gwynn, product evangelist.
Redfern hosting the panel, and Susie McRae, who leads community engagement.
A solid lineup.
Definitely. And the claim they're making is, well, it's huge. They're saying this isn't just some update.
No, they're framing it as potentially revolutionary, something that could really shake up the internet and, interestingly, offer financial stability for families globally.
Exactly. So that's what we want to unpack today. What exactly is being relaunched? Why now?
And, crucially, how are they planning to achieve this big impact they're talking about?
Let's start with the significance. How are they describing this June 2025 event? It sounds like more than just a typical product launch.
Oh, absolutely. Ash Mufari himself calls it a revolution. He uses terms like reset the digital economy, achieving true equity.
Wow, okay. Big words.
Very big. The narrative isn't just about software features. It seems to be about fundamentally changing the digital landscape. They even talk about reclaiming digital freedom for humanity.
Digital freedom. That's quite a statement.
It is. It sets a very high bar for what they're trying to do.
Okay, so let's tackle that why now question because,
Yeah.
people might remember OES did have an initial launch back in 2023.
Right. And hearing relaunch can sometimes make you think, okay, what happened the first time?
Exactly. Is this a do-over? What's the rationale?
They address that. They acknowledge the 2023 launch, but position this June 2025 event as a major evolution. It's not starting from scratch, but building significantly on what was there.
Based on what? What changed?
User feedback is one key driver they mention, plus refinement of the system, adding more sophisticated automation.
Okay.
They also talk about something called OAI governance.
OAI governance. What does that imply?
It sounds like using AI for managing aspects of the platform itself, maybe decision-making or moderation, perhaps. And then there's improved scalability, being able to handle more users smoothly.
Which is important if they're aiming for global impact.
Definitely. And finally, they mention adding built-in self-funding e-commerce tools. The goal seems to be to, let's say, fully activate the potential they saw in 2023. But for everyone, tech users, families, educators, you name it.
Right, unlocking it for a broader audience. Now that leads into the economic impact part, especially for families. Julie and Grian seem to focus on this.
Yes, that's a core theme. Ash Mufareh frames their approach as a value-first model, not profit-first.
What does that mean in practice? Value first.
The idea, as they present it, is that if the system provides genuine value to users, the financial benefits will naturally follow. It's about prioritizing the user experience and utility over immediate profit extraction.
Okay. And what are the specific tools they say will help families earn?
They highlighted a few. Odesk sounds like a service or freelance platform. OShop, probably an e-commerce marketplace.
Makes sense.
Obless, which was described as a platform for giving and receiving support, maybe crowdfunding or mutual aid,
Interesting.
and a new version of their digital wallet, OWallet 2.0.
And these are supposed to generate income how?
They call them automated revenue pipelines. The claim is quite bold that these can create income streams even if you don't have prior experience.
Automated pipelines. That sounds appealing, but also requires some scrutiny.
For sure. The examples they give are things like selling goods or services, teaching through a platform like Academy, creating content, collaborating, or earning through referrals. So multiple potential avenues.
And Susie McRae provided some real-world context, right?
Yeah.
Stories of actual users.
Exactly. She brought in that human dimension. She talked about grandparents using OConnect, which seems to be their communication tool.
Yeah.
And single mothers using Academy, likely their education platform, to earn by sharing knowledge. These anecdotes are meant to show it's already happening on some scale.
And her point about restoring hope and dignity.
Yes, that really emphasizes the potential personal impact beyond just the dollars and cents. It connects the tech to, real-life improvements.
Okay, let's switch gears a bit to the technology itself. Redfern asked Julian Guyan about what's actually new in this relaunch. What are the key tech upgrades?
They rolled out descriptions of several new components. OVault, for instance,
Vault. What's that?
described as a decentralized data trust. So think distributed storage, not all your data in one place. Potentially enhances security, user control over their information.
Decentralized. That's a buzzword, but it has real implications if done right.
It does. Then there's OWork,
Okay.
an AI-driven freelancer network.
Yeah.
Suggests AI matching freelancers with projects, maybe managing workflows.
So using AI to facilitate work connections.
Seems like it. And OGraph, a social engagement tool. What's interesting there is the mention of rewarding positive contributions.
Rewarding positivity. How would that even work?
That's a good question. The mechanics weren't fully detailed, but the concept is intriguing. Trying to incentivize constructive interaction.
And how does all this tech fit together?
Through the O-chain. That's ONPASSIVE's private AI blockchain.
Okay, a private blockchain. So controlled by ONPASSIVE, but using blockchain principles.
Yeah, exactly. They say it enables transparent earning, automated smart contracts, those self-executing coded agreements, and critically, makes all these different apps work together. interoperability.
So the idea is you use Odesk, it connects with your O wallet, maybe interacts with OGraph, all running on this O chain.
That seems to be the vision, a seamless ecosystem.
And Mike Ellis talked about the user experience, wanting it to be easy.
Yes, that was a key point. He stressed that it should operate silently in the background.
Like you don't need to be a tech whiz to use it.
Precisely. His analogy was just plug in and let the system do the heavy lifting. That focus on ease of use is vital if they genuinely want to reach ordinary families, not just tech enthusiasts.
Makes sense. Now, stepping back, Ashmafari's ambition seems larger than just ONPASSIVE itself. He talks about writing a new chapter in internet history.
Yeah, the vision extends beyond the company. There's an underlying critique of the current internet model.
What's the critique?
The panel suggested that, up to now, the tech elite hoarded the profits. OES is positioned as the alternative.
An alternative built on what principles?
More ethical, fair, and empowering, according to them. The goal is to spread the benefits, the opportunities, much more widely.
And the stories Susie McRae shared from places like Ghana, Brazil, India.
Right, and even Alaska. Those testimonials are used to hammer home the global reach and the idea that OES provides a reason to dream again. It's about empowerment on a worldwide scale.
So with June 2025 approaching, what are they telling current or potential users to do now? What are the practical steps?
Redfern laid out a tech list. Log into the OES back office, get used to the new interface.
Okay, familiarize yourself.
Update your profile information, and complete something called O-Verify.
O-Verify. Sounds like an identity check.
Probably. Standard stuff for financial systems, really. Also, enable wallet synchronization, connecting your wallet to the system properly.
Makes sense for earning.
And explore the O-Rewards dashboard. See what benefits or points might be accumulating.
Anything else?
They specifically mentioned an early access monetization track for people creating content on Academy. So educators or creators can potentially start earning sooner.
So get your house in order, basically. Get familiar, get verified, get connected.
Exactly. And Mike Ellis added the encouragement to share the news, invite others, build the community before the official relaunch.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, June 2025, clearly marked as a pivotal moment by them.
Absolutely. Ash Mufareh's final comments really doubled down on that. He called it our moment for global transformation.
Strong words again.
Yes. He emphasized the value he sees in every product, every person, every dream connected to OES. The relaunch isn't just about software. It's framed as the relaunch of possibilities.
And Redfern's closing.
It was a direct invitation to you, the listener, framing you as part of something potentially historic. Relaunch, rebuild, and rise with ONPASSIVE.
So it leaves us with a pretty significant thought to consider.
Yeah.
What would the internet, what would online life look like if more digital spaces were genuinely built on this value-first idea they're promoting?
It's a fundamental question, isn't it? How might that shift actually change our daily interactions online? And what about the economic side? Could it really create widespread opportunity like they claim?
And what are the hurdles, the potential downsides or challenges in making a system like that work and work fairly on a global scale?
Huge questions. Definitely something to mull over.
Indeed. Plenty to think about there. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. Okay, so that material you sent over, the Ashmafara speech in Nigeria about ONPASSIVE, really interesting stuff.
Yeah, definitely. We've got those key excerpts, plus a pretty detailed summary of the longer video. Gives us a good base.
For sure. So what we want to do in this deep dive really is unpack it.
Exactly. Go beyond just the surface, understand the core message. What problems is he actually flagging in Nigeria?
And what solutions is ONPASSIVE putting on the table? What's the big vision here?
Mm-hmm.
So just for context, we're talking about Ash Mufareh, founder of ONPASSIVE.
Right.
And this speech happened in Nigeria, specifically on their Independence Day.
Which is pretty significant timing.
It really is. And what jumped out at me straight away is how much he centers Nigeria in ONPASSIVE's plans.
Totally.
The big idea seems to be like using their tech to shake things up, education, finance, aiming for what he kept calling true independence.
Yeah, that phrase came up a lot.
It makes you think, though. What does it actually mean for a tech company to dive so deep into one specific nation's, well, systemic challenges?
It's definitely a focused strategy. He starts off, acknowledging Independence Day, the celebration.
The gendered opening, right?
But then pivots almost immediately. He points to what he calls systemic failures that are still there despite the anniversary.
So, like, independence on paper isn't the whole story.
Precisely. He's saying the reality on the ground doesn't necessarily match the date on the calendar.
Okay. And then he really zooms out, doesn't he? Talking about Nigeria's role in Africa.
Oh, yeah. He basically says Nigeria is critical for Africa's future. Like any big plan for the continent has to involve Nigeria. That's a huge statement.
It really is. And he praises the Nigerian people, too, their potential.
He balances the challenges with that potential, highlighting the importance, the capability, but also the hurdles.
Setting the stage, sort of.
Exactly. And from there, he gets more specific about those hurdles.
Right. He names things like corruption, security issues.
Yeah, the big ones that, well, everyone knows are challenges. But then, crucially, he immediately connects those problems back to ONPASSIVE.
Saying their existing work, their solutions, can actually help tackle these deep-rooted things.
That's the pitch. How their platform, their tools, could potentially make a difference, even with problems like corruption or security.
Okay, let's pause on that. When he says existing solutions, what are we really talking about? The sources didn't detail the whole platform, but education really stood out.
It did. He heavily emphasized revolutionizing the educational system, framed it as like fundamental for improving society there.
So when he says revolutionizing education, what do you think that entails? Is it getting more kids into school, improving the quality, tech platform?
Well, given the context of systemic failures, it probably means all of the above.
Yeah.
You know, it's likely about broadening access, maybe using tech like online learning for remote areas,
Okay.
but also about quality, perhaps using AI, other tools to personalize learning, boost results.
And he connects that directly to finance, right?
Right. Yes. Better education needs a better financial system to support it. People need the infrastructure to, well, use their education, participate in the economy. So yeah, education and finance seem like the twin pillars of their initial push in Nigeria.
Gotcha. Now, this next bit really caught my attention. He's not talking about small tweaks.
No, definitely not.
He uses phrases like substantial and lasting solutions. He's pushing back against temporary fixes.
Right. He wants deep change.
And he positions Nigeria as the priority launchpad for their biggest life-changing innovations, stuff aimed squarely at improving quality of life. What does that tell us? Prioritizing Nigeria for the major rollouts.
It suggests Nigeria isn't just one market for them. It's maybe the key strategic market, certainly at this stage. It's where they want to prove their most impactful concepts.
And the focus again on education, but also mentioning other sectors, it feels very ambitious.
It really does. It's not just tweaking things at the edges. It's aiming for fundamental shifts. Maybe they see it as, if we can make it work here with these challenges, it proves the model works anywhere.
A proving ground. Interesting.
Yeah.
And this ties back to his idea of true independence. He's basically saying ONPASSIVE showing up is the catalyst Nigeria needs for real freedom.
That's the narrative he's building.
He even suggests success in Nigeria is key to ONPASSIVE's global success, which is quite a claim.
It's a strong claim. It shows immense confidence, or perhaps a very specific strategy that sees tackling these complex issues as the route to more robust, globally applicable solutions later on.
Yeah, and he talks about this strong determination to succeed. It doesn't sound like a casual experiment.
No, it feels like a core strategic pillar for them.
Then the tone shifts a bit towards this idea of a collective mission.
Right, emphasizing unity, that they can't do it alone.
And he gets quite personal, calling himself a brother to the audience. Positioning ONPASSIVE as this, like, people-powered movement. What's the angle there, do you think?
Well, that personal touch, the brother language, it's about building trust, creating a connection,
Okay.
and saying change comes from the people, not just the top brass. That's classic empowerment rhetoric.
Like, we provide the tools, you drive the change.
Exactly. It fosters buy-in, shared ownership, and dismissing past failures is part of that, trying to build optimism. You know,
Yeah.
this time it's different.
Right. Don't dwell on what didn't work before. Focus forward.
Yeah. He frames ONPASSIVE as the turning point, the necessary shift to finally get effective solutions for problems that have lingered.
You can definitely feel the urgency building in his words by this point.
Absolutely. He voices this worry, like, if ONPASSIVE doesn't succeed in Nigeria, the country risks just repeating old cycles of stagnation.
Wow. So the stakes are high, not just for the company, but for Nigeria itself, in his view.
That's how he presents it, a real sense of responsibility.
And he pushes for action now, doesn't he? Saying the next generation is counting on this.
Yeah, and he even takes a bit of a swipe, cautioning against trusting politicians too much to deliver this kind of change.
So it's a direct appeal. Partner with us, the people. Let's make this happen.
It's very much a call to action, yes. And he acknowledges the hype around ONPASSIVE.
Sure, the excitement.
But he grounds it, saying, look, there's real work to do, especially here in Nigeria. He reassures them there's a plan, that Nigeria is the priority, even over potentially easier wins elsewhere.
Even if he can't share all the details of that plan.
Right. Keeping some cards close to his chest, but reinforcing that core message, Nigeria first.
Okay, so let's try and pull this all together. The big takeaways. Number one, clearly, is Mufara's intense, unwavering focus on Nigeria. It's absolutely central to ONPASSIVE's mission, isn't it?
Undeniably. It's not just a focus. It seems like the focus right now.
Then number two, this idea of revolutionizing education and finance as the key pathways to achieving that true independence he talks about.
Yeah, those are the two concrete sectors he repeatedly highlights as needing transformation.
And third, underpinning it all, is this call for collective effort, unity, shared responsibility, a commitment driven by the Nigerian people themselves with ONPASSIVE as the enabler.
Exactly. It's positioned as a partnership, almost a movement.
Was there anything that particularly surprised you or an aha moment looking through this?
For me, it was probably the sheer intensity of the focus on one country. You just don't often see a global tech company planting its flag quite so firmly and saying, our success hinges on transforming this specific nation.
Yeah, that really stood out for me too. And the direct appeal to the people, bypassing traditional authority figures to some extent.
The ground-up approach is definitely noteworthy. It's a big bet on collective action.
So for you listening, hopefully you've now got a clearer picture of Ash Mufari's vision for ONPASSIVE, specifically in Nigeria.
Yeah, the challenges he's identifying, the solutions he's proposing, and how he's framing this whole ambitious project to the people there.
It leaves us with a final thought, really. Something for you to mull over.
What are the wider implications when a tech company makes such a massive strategic bet on transforming a single nation like this?
Yeah, what unique challenges might pop up? But also, what unexpected opportunities or advantages could come from such a laser-focused approach?
Definitely something worth pondering.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, you and I are getting into a recent online event that's really stirred up some conversation. It's a webinar by Ash Mufara called Historic Comeback. We've got a pretty detailed summary here, and, well, our goal is to pull out the main themes, the real takeaways, so you get a clear picture of Mufara's direction, especially if you're tracking things like business strategy, leadership, or tech innovation.
Yeah, and it's obvious this webinar hit home for a lot of people. I mean, the summary says over 2,000 questions came in. That tells you something, right? How invested the audience is and the anticipation around his plans. It's also interesting, they mentioned some questions couldn't be answered right away, suggests maybe a staged release of info. And it sounds like they really tried to make it welcoming, acknowledging different backgrounds and beliefs.
Exactly. So let's jump right in. One of the first big things that seemed to stand out was this long-term vision. Mufara was really clear, apparently, that success isn't just a point you reach, it's the whole journey. What was your take on that?
Well, what's interesting there is how he connected that long journey to personal character. He brought up integrity, especially when things get tough. It kind of suggests that the bumps in the road and how you deal with them are just as vital as the wins. It's about building something solid, not just quick fixes.
It clicks. It's that resilience idea, yeah. And he also mentioned being present and actually in the process, not just looking towards some future outcome.
Absolutely. This idea that you need to be actively involved, putting in consistent effort along the way. And if you connect that to the overall feel of the webinar, it really seems like a deliberate pivot. Less focus on past struggles, more on future goals, this feeling of transformation, learning from before, but actively building anew.
Right. And that flows pretty naturally into the leadership discussion. Mufara apparently talked about leadership being fundamentally about trust, about the quality of your relationships. He even made a contrast between, I think he called them transactional relationships, and ones built on real trust. Can you unpack that a bit?
Sure. So think of transactional as purely you do this, I do that. You provide a service, I pay. End of story. Trust-based is deeper. It involves mutual respect, understanding, thinking long-term, believing in the other person's, integrity. And what really stood out was him saying he'd rather follow a leader he trusts than just jump on some new product he doesn't know. That says a lot about where he places value.
And the summary dropped hints about a more powerful chapter ahead, promising updates too. That definitely builds some curiosity.
It does. And promising transparency about new products, about his vision. That's crucial. Whenever big changes are coming, keeping people in the loop, Well, that builds confidence. It strengthens those trust-based connections we were just talking about.
Okay, now the talk also went beyond just, the bottom line. It touched on passion, on community, a real focus on personal growth, valuing friendships. It sounds like the main motivation isn't purely financial.
Yeah, and what's interesting is how success is framed. It's not the only goal, right? It's more like an outcome that comes from focusing on personal development, on making real connections. It suggests this belief that if you focus on creating value, on building those strong relationships, then, recognition, maybe money, that'll follow.
And they made a point of highlighting the community's role too, acknowledging contributions from lots of people, reinforces that idea that success isn't a solo act.
Exactly. That feeling of collective effort, mutual support, it's so important. A strong community gives you encouragement, feedback, a shared purpose, which can be incredibly powerful, especially when you're trying to do something big.
So this community focus then connects to the whole collaboration piece and empowering online businesses. The webinar acknowledged the struggles many people face trying to make it online, and it raises a key question for you, the listener. Is this new phase going to offer the actual tools and support needed for online businesses to, really succeed?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? So many people hit roadblocks, online, tech stuff, marketing, you name it. The fact that people appreciated the project's vision, comparing it to using your talents well, that speaks volumes. People want solutions that let them reach their online potential.
And this idea of collective talent was pushed, that when people team up, bring different skills, the results are bigger for their businesses and for them personally.
That synergy is key. Leveraging different strengths, different viewpoints to reach shared goals. That's how you get innovation, how everyone moves forward together.
Let's swing back to that historic comeback title. The summary paints a picture of real excitement, gratitude from the people there. This event felt like a big deal, almost like a turning point was reached.
The energy definitely sounds like it was high. And the timing during Holy Week for some attendees, that might add another layer of meaning for them. Renewal? Maybe. New starts. The participants talking about resilience, faith, believing that sticking with it pays off. It really highlights how significant they felt this moment was, like a shared belief in moving past difficulties towards something better.
Sounds like it. And a huge part of that something better is this move to a totally new business platform, the reason given. A need for a completely fresh start, a clean break from what came before.
Yeah, deciding to basically start from scratch, that suggests they want to maybe tackle some core limitations or perhaps bring in totally new tech, new ways of doing things, making sure the transition is smooth for existing users, logins and teams. That's a practical thing, but absolutely vital to avoid chaos.
Right. And even though it's about building this brand new space with its own rules, there was a hint that maybe people from the old platform might get some advantages. Seems like a balancing act, starting fresh, but also acknowledging who's been around. But the main point seems to be new foundation, not carrying over the old baggage.
That clean slate approach, it can be really freeing, actually. It lets you bring in the latest stuff without being tied down by old systems. Plus, it's a chance to maybe improve processes, make things more user-friendly.
Which leads us to what probably has a lot of people buzzing. The upcoming innovations, these disruptive technologies they mentioned. The next phase is apparently going to rely heavily on these advanced tools, and there's been this deliberate pause in sharing details, which, as you said, really ramps up the anticipation.
Oh yeah, that strategic quiet, it can work wonders for building interest. And the promise that this new tech will be cutting edge, more scalable, maybe even cheaper.